Yes, my friends, it's raining. It never rains in winter. Never. Could have waited for another 3 days, right? Because then we have beginning of spring. But even now in the third last day of winter time, we have made 28 kilowatt hours today. Despite clouds and rain, and the energy crisis is solved. So I've got my red warning t-shirt on today to make this official video. Guys, welcome back to the Off-Grid Garage here in... It's raining. And today we want to test the Global Power battery again in terms of the active balancer. So we want to fully charge this battery again with the active balancer turned on all the time. And then in the second test we want to fully charge this battery again with the active balancer completely turned off. And we want to see if there's actually a difference. And in between these two tests we are going to fully top balance this battery again as it was before. 58.2 volts and around 35 millivolt, whatever it says here. So we're always starting from the same point, having all the cells on the same balance, and then we do a full cycle and see what's going on when we recharge again. Because as I said in yesterday's intro video, in theory all the cells should come to the same state of charge again when we fully charge. And as you can see, we have 6 out of 6 stars already. I think we have actually fully charged this battery. Is that too much light? We have fully charged this battery already today, and I turned off the solar charge controller then because I didn't want to have the battery sitting on a high state of charge all the time and give the balancer time to balance, because then we would have a wrong result. Let's have a look at the SPAD calibration center. Yes, here you can see we are on 95%, so it wasn't quite enough to reset the BMS. But this was already over 56 volts for a short period of time. So we have to keep charging the battery now to see what's going on. And yeah, I want to quickly show you something here. 6, I think it was. Yes, that was it. So here in the Victron VIM Advanced tab, we can see down here this graph. It gives us the smart BMS, so this is the Pace BMS. The min and max cell voltage in a graph, yeah? Blue is the minimum and orange is the maximum cell voltage. So up there you've got the battery voltage and current, and down here we've got the minimum and maximum cell voltage. Here it starts at 54.7 volts actually. This is when the cells go apart, and we should start balancing at this point of time then, because now we can see a difference, while before there was nothing. It was a flat line. Even while charging here, it was only 1-2 millivolt difference only. So you cannot actually tell if your battery is balanced or not just by looking at the minimum and maximum cell voltage. You have to charge to a higher state of charge. And we can see here at 54.6 volts, it is not high enough. We still have no deviation. There's only 1 millivolt difference between the cells, right? So in here, if we charge a bit higher to 55 volt, 55.2 volts. This was our maximum charge voltage at the beginning when we did the capacity test. And we can see here the cells are spreading apart now, 3.54 to 3.40. And then we connected the adjustable power supply and kept charging this battery all the way up to 56 volts. He was 57.2 volts. And we've got a deviation of around 10 millivolts. So that was pretty good actually. And then we gave the balancer time to balance. And you can see how the yellow line comes down. And this is exactly the work the active balancer does in the battery then. Then we disconnected, voltage goes down. And then we said, okay, let's charge it up to the maximum we can go with. Could actually see here at around 58 volts, we had a cell high voltage disconnect. We are at 3.66 volts and the lower voltage is at 3.57. And then we gave the balancer time to do its work at this voltage here. You can see how these two curves are now coming together. And then we said here at 58.27 volts, we just call it... I just realized I said this all wrong. This is not like 10 millivolt, this is like 100 millivolt deviation. So I put this all on the screen correctly. I said this wrong, but it's correct on the screen. And here at 58.27 volts, we can still see a deviation of around 35 millivolt. And we said we can wait for the balancer now to balance the pack. But let's start with the discharge test. And this is what we did. So we started right here and the voltage drops sharp into the flat area of the curve, and you can see here it's flat and the cells are coming together regardless if they are balanced or not. You won't see a difference. And if we reset the zoom here again and have a look, this is basically our discharge curve. From there it's going down from 52, 53 volts all the way down into the discharge knee. And then if I zoom into this part again, you can see here at 50 volt, 48 volt, we've got around 30 millivolt deviation only, and then it goes down. And at 48 volts, we've got like 80, 90 millivolt deviation. This was the lowest we could get, 42.4 volts, and we had a deviation of around 300 millivolt. Then the BMS disconnected because one of the cells hit the 2.5 volts, and then cell voltage slowly recovers and goes up again. And then we connected the QSO battery and it started charging with 20 amps then with the current limiter active. Yeah, so this is actually pretty cool what you can see here in the Victron VRM. And I know Victron is expensive stuff, but you get all these analyzing tools here for free with it, all the remote control. I could log into my solar charge controller today and just turn it off, turn off the charging completely. I can go into any settings remotely with my mobile phone. Any of the equipment is connected. I can change the smart shunt settings. I can read all the parameters. I can change everything. And you've got the Victron VRM, which gives you unlimited data basically, and you can really analyze your system, what has happened, troubleshoot it if you need to, or if you do these battery tests as I do here. It's really a super tool to see all these little things happening then after it has happened because someone forgot to turn on the screen recorder. I heard about this story. It's unbelievable. Pool fence. Okay, let me turn on the charger again. It is still raining outside. It is cloudy. I'm not sure if we get enough energy, but as I said, the battery was already charged over 56 volts, so it shouldn't take much energy. Enable charger. There we go. Nah, there's not enough coming. We're charging with 0.7 amps only from the solar into the battery. That's actually battery current. But let me connect the power supply again, and then we can just crank it up and see what the deviation is at a full charge again. You know, charging with 5 amps into the battery. BMS only shows the solar current at the moment coming in, so 0.9. There's a bit of sunlight. Look at this. There's a bit of sunlight coming out after the rain. 53.4. We are charging with 5 amps into the battery. I've set the power supply to 58.2 volts. And we just watch the voltage rising and the deviation going up as well. This is all we have to do now. So we are now at 54.4 volts almost, and deviation is rising to 47 millivolt already. So from here it looks like the deviation has actually increased. You know, before we were at 58.2 volts and 35 millivolt deviation, and now we are already at 50 millivolt deviation. So it's actually getting worse. But the balancer has still time to balance this out, right? We are increasing the voltage, and the higher we charge, the easier it is for the balancer to do actually its work. So we have to really wait until we reach the 58.2 volts and then see what's going on. So we have now reached 55 volts. We've got a deviation of 91 millivolt, 92. It's increasing. And we keep charging. 55.2 volts, 104 millivolt deviation. I usually would stop charging here and keep the voltage constant, let the battery absorb, and let the balancer do its work. So at this voltage, we don't even have a cell high voltage alarm, nor a protection, nothing. It's just 100 millivolt. It will balance itself out automatically. And 55.2 is where I would turn on the balancer, not before that. 56 volts battery voltage, 165 millivolt deviation. And we can see cell number 16 is now the first one with a cell over voltage alarm. And the BMS would now stop charging as well, but leaving the charge MOSFETs turned on and also the solar charger active for your load. So I would say at this pace, we are not even reaching the 58 volts because the deviation gets so large, and cell number 16 is obviously a runner in this case. We've got 3.63 volts already. At 3.65, I have to turn off the charger manually, because you promised never charge your battery without BMS. There we go, 3.645, so we are very close. 200 millivolt deviation we have, and we cannot even reach 57 volts anymore. There we go, we've got an alarm from the servo, it beeps. 3.65 volts, I turn off the power supply. So there you go, this was one full top balance with the active balancer to 58.2 volts, I know I repeat myself, and 35 millivolt deviation. Then a full discharge down to 2.5 volts, cell number 5 was hitting 2.5, and then a full charge again over Sunday, Monday, and today, Tuesday, 3 days from solar, giving the balancer time to do its work in either way. And now we are fully charged again, but we have an over voltage protection now. We cannot charge any higher than 56.5 volts or whatever it was. So alone from this result now, I would say we have destroyed our top balancing. We have increased the voltage delta across all our cells for some reason. And the only logical explanation for that is the active balancer was active for the last 3.5 days since we did the discharge test on Saturday. So this is the result I'm getting out of this test now. And of course I could leave the battery now connected to the solar system and keep cycling it during the day, discharging a little bit and recharging from solar again, and see if this result actually gets better over time. I doubt it. Maybe if we fully charge the battery every single day and we are leaving the battery in the higher voltage area, so give the balancer actually more time to balance. But if you use your battery between, say, 40 and 60% all the time now because the weather is shitty outside, you won't give the balancer time to do any work, and it will just do that. It imbalances your battery. Okay, so this was the first part of this test now. In the second part now, we want to fully charge this battery again to 58.2 volts. So I leave the active balancer connected for the moment until we reach this voltage. And we want to balance the battery down to 35 millivolt again, to exactly the same point as we did before. Okay, let's do this first and then we see what's going on. I have to slowly increase the voltage and give the balancer actually time to keep these cells under control, which are peaking. Okay, let me quickly get this done and then I'll talk to you again. Okay, we are at 58.2 volts and I got a deviation of 24 millivolt. So this will be our base now for the next battery. Disconnected the active balancer, we do a full discharge again and a full charge again, exactly the same way as before with the balancer connected. And then we want to see how far we can charge this time then. Hopefully we come to the same point again and everything is fine. Alright, the discharge is on the way. SmartShunt has been reset. Not that I'm going to do another capacity test or something. But hey, it is already 6:30 p.m. now. And the test will go for 5 hours. So this will be 11:30 p.m. close to midnight, and I'm happy to come out again and show you how the battery looks like with the screen recorder running this time, how the battery looks like in the lower voltage area, because we have missed this in the last video. So I'm happy to stay up that long and show you what's going on with the battery then. I will be showered, brushed my teeth, combed my hair, and are in my PJs already, because I will go to bed right after that. It will be very late. It will be a super late night show this time then. But for you guys, I'm doing it. All right, we see us again in 5 hours or so. Have a lovely dinner and evening, and talk to you at midnight. All right, my friends, I just made it back from the shower freshly into the garage. I'm totally bed ready now. After this one goes down, I'm off here. I'm gone. It is 1:45 midnight. We are down to 48 volts, 3%. We're at 50 millivolt deviation at the moment, still discharging with 56 amps. And the cells are still changing here. You can see number 1, number 7, number 4 as the maximum, and here number 8 number 9, or 16 now. So this is good. That means the pack is well balanced, still in the lower area of the curve as well. We have discharged 14.5 kilowatt hours. So we will roughly get into the same result again as in the first test. Yeah guys, welcome back to the super low state of charge midnight live commentary here of the Global Power battery being discharged again. See, and in this situation here, the active balancer would already work on your cells and would destroy your top balancing, because we have fully top balanced the battery, so all cells were on the same state of charge, the same voltage level, and now the balancer will mix this up again, takes energy from one cell into another one, and if you fully charge it again, this top balance is not there anymore because the cells have been altered. Yes, the balancer will do the same at the top again, but mostly what I found is the balancer is not fast enough to do that. Especially if you don't fully charge your battery every single day and the balancer has enough time to cause chaos. If you have 20-30 millivolt deviation for days, for weeks, for months during winter, it has so much time to shift energy around. Once you fully charge again, your whole top balance is totally gone. This is at least my experience from what we have tested here, battery 1.0 and also in the battery shelf with the active balancer. And now we are doing another active balancer test with the Global Power battery, because this is the first production battery on the market basically, which comes with a active balancer included. But here it is changing 8, 11, 16, which is good. Number 9. The more cells are in there, the more consistent our pack is. And we only have a deviation of 50 or 70, between 50 and 70 millivolt, which is not bad considering we are at 47.5 volts. So I think we may already see here an advantage of not having the balancer connected all the time. And during discharging now for the last 5.5 hours, the balancer would have time to unbalance your pack again, because we always had this 25-30 millivolt deviation during this discharge test, and this times 5 hours it would shift energy around between the cells, which is clearly not necessary because we have got our top balancing, and once we fully charged, all the cells should go up to this exact top balance again, in theory of course, because there's different heat loss in different cells. But this is only a small variation the active balancer needs to balance then. 1%, the BMS claims. We did not come to 1% in the first discharge test with the active balancer active. At 3% there was nothing anymore. You can still see 9, 11, 14, several different cells are on a low voltage, which is fantastic. In the first test it was only cell number 5, which was always the lowest for quite a long time until the BMS shut off. But now it is changing all the time, which is perfect. 45 volts, or we may see a low voltage disconnect of the inverter this time. Who knows? Cell number 11, number 9, number 14, still 3 cells in the race for the lowest voltage cell. But here's number 1. This is our highest voltage cell at the moment. And it stays like this. So we now have the first low voltage cell alarms, all the yellow ones popping up. 45 volts now and 100 millivolt deviation. That's not too bad. That is not too bad. It's super low voltage in the battery, super low, and 2.75 is our lowest voltage in one of the cells here. That'll be a race. Inverter or BMS, which is turning off first. We now have the pack under voltage alarm as well coming up. You can see the 44 volts here in yellow. It is still changing between 14 and 16 here. That is interesting. 292 ampere hours, 15 kilowatt hours, 140 millivolt deviation. We can see 44 volts. I think this time the inverter will shut down before we hit the 2.5 volts. The Tesla has already throttled down now because the voltage is so low what the inverter can still deliver. Maybe the car is shutting down at some stage and stops charging. We have seen this as well before, right? 2.6 volts, 175 millivolt deviation, 43 volts now, pack voltage, 15.1 kilowatt hours. It is still going between 14 and 16. Look at this here. That is, and number 5. There's only a cell number 1 higher than all the other ones. So I bet this cell has a bit more capacity than all the other ones, maybe 1-2 ampere hours more, and that's why it stays a bit higher in voltage. 42 volts, 293.5 ampere hours. Wow. 250 millivolt deviation we have now, but this is, I mean, this is ridiculous. 42 volts, and it's still running. The inverter, you should hear the fans. Oh, now the inverter has shut down, I think. Yes, it has. The inverter has shut down. Can't cope anymore. We don't have any protection status here, so none of the cells has actually hit the 2.5 volts. Is this an indication of a better balanced battery pack already? I don't know. But this time it seems to be more consistent than the first time. Because the active balancer would work now, you know. It would shift energy around. It would discharge cell number 1 and put this in cell number 5 and all the other ones in between as well. So I would say, well, this was another successful test of this Google Power Battery. 294 ampere hours. I think it was 1 ampere hour less than before. And we've got the same 15.1 kilowatt hours. So voltage seems a bit more stable now for whatever reason. It is definitely colder today than it was on Saturday with our first test. So fantastic. Okay, I'm going to fully charge this battery now to 58 volts. And then we see what the deviation is without any active balancer. So give me a moment here, maybe 2 or 3 days, and then we talk again. All right, until then, you have a great time. See you then. Have a good night. It is 1 minute after midnight. Ridiculous. Good afternoon, my friends. Welcome back to the Off-Grid Garage after 2 days now. It's day number 2 after the last full discharge. And I have to start the screen recorder, otherwise I talk to the camera, but you can't see shit. Oh, it is getting so dark. There's a tiny cloud in front of the sun. We are charging only with 860 milliamps at the moment. But we are at 56.5 volts. This is almost the same voltage as in the first test with the active balancer active when we reached 3.65 volts. And here we can already see we are at 3.55 only. And I have a deviation of 58 millivolt. So it seems like, oh, the sun is coming back. So it seems like now this pack is better balanced. Doesn't matter, as long as we charge and the voltage increases, I'm fine. We just need to wait until one cell hits 3.65 volts, read the voltage and deviation, and then we can compare. No, it's not going to happen. It looks like there's a larger cloud now, so it won't charge with solar anymore. It's only 1 amp. I'll connect the power supply. Hang on. Okay, so we are now charging with around 4 amps. Why is it only 4? It needs to be 5. So we are charging with 5 amps now into the battery. So this is the same current as we had in the first test. Voltage is increasing 57.2 already. Wow. 64 millivolt deviation. This is already a far higher voltage. 57.5 volts. We are over 3.6 volts here now, but look at this. 70 millivolt deviation only. 0.64. We are at 58 volts, guys. 58 volts. There we go. And we got 58, just over 58 volts and 76 millivolt deviation. I mean, what can I say, right? What can I say? So under ideal conditions, you have your battery fully charged and top balanced. You discharge your battery and you charge it again and it goes to exactly the same spot where it was before. Yeah. If we disregard all the losses, everything, in the ideal world, it would go back to exactly the same position. But with the active balancer connected all the time, we discharged and it went back only to here. Yeah. Before we hit 3.65 volts with one of the cells. While in this case, without active balancer connected at all, we discharged and almost came back to the same point. There was only a bit missing. And this bit only comes from the cell deviation because the cells are not 100% the same. But in the first case, the active balancer actually destroyed your top balancing. You can see this was 1.8 volt below the first top balancing we did. While in the second test, it was only 200 millivolt difference. I don't know, guys. This is only one cycle. Once again, we've got a very clear result that you should not leave the active balancer running 24/7. Even in the flat part of the discharge and charge curve, there is a small difference between your battery cells, and the balancer uses that to imbalance. And I guess this is what we have seen once again. We have tested this in battery 1.0 several times. We have also tested this in our battery shelf when we commissioned the 3 banks. We had the active balancer connected for a while and could see the same. And now here with the Gobel Power battery, the same result again. So 3 or even 1, 2, 3, 4. This is battery number 5 now we are testing with an active balancer and come to the same result. I'm not saying these people who are saying they've got the active balancer running all the time and have no issues are wrong or so. They may have just extremely well matched cells. Or maybe not. Maybe they don't have extremely well matched cells and the balancer works exactly in the favor of this unmatched battery pack. And we don't know how far they charge, if they're charged to 3.45 or if they charge higher. We don't have all the details, but it's very good that these people are sharing their experience as well here. So we've got another opinion saying, well, you can leave it connected, while I'm testing here and say we get a better result if we don't leave it connected all the time. And also in the first test with the balancer always connected, we could see the battery was kind of imbalanced during the discharge as well, because then we had one cell number 5, which actually disconnected our battery pack before the inverter turned off. And it looked like the cell consistency in the first test was a bit rougher, while in the second test without the active balancer, and when we discharged the battery again, there was like 2 nights ago, we could see that the min voltage cell was changing all the time. So it picked from one of the 3 low voltage cells, and this only shows that these cells are fairly matched. Well, in the first test there was a clear loser. There was cell number 5, which was always the lowest, and here we had several cells being low, so the pack was far more equalized. And I don't know, you have to watch this video from Stuart Pittaway. I link this down below. He actually kind of reverse engineered how this active balancer actually works and broke it all down, so it's very easy to understand how it all works and very interesting. So watch this video if you don't know how these active balancers actually work. I myself didn't know how this works, but now I know, because from the breakdown video he made, it is very clear that a low voltage delta across all your cells balances only with a few milliamps back and forward then. But still, it balances. And from this first test, we could see we could not charge again to the same position again as we were in one cycle. It was a lot lower, 1.8 volt lower. While in the second test without this balancer, we almost reached the same position again. Okay guys, I think that's it for the last 5 days, 4 days, 6 days or something. I lost count. Testing the active balancing function in the Gobel Power battery again. They still got the 12% discount running on this battery here, and they have also contacted people now to give them a better price on the shipping. A better price than their shipping calculator actually calculated. As always, all the links are down under the video. Don't forget to watch Stuart's video as well, very interesting. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all your amazing support here on the channel, especially for these, oh no, I haven't got my SPAT t-shirt on. Especially for these beautiful people who have donated to the channel here. Thank you very much for the beer. Also, thank you very much for your emails. Please do not send me emails. Far too many emails. I'd rather come here to the garage and make a video for everyone. Until the next video, guys, you stay charged, stay safe, and thanks again for watching. See you then. Bye-bye. And guys, as a bit of a bonus, thank you so much for over 150 comments on my last video when I talked about the active balancer. And people left really good comments and shared their experience with that. And I've written down some of the highlights actually of these comments, which I want to share with you now. So when we talk about leaving the balancer connected 24/7 at the battery, then we have also to consider the usage pattern of this battery. A high current into your battery or out of your battery will cause a higher deviation across your cells, so it will spread the cells apart even in the flat area of the curve. And therefore, the balancer will then start working. But if you have only a small current, a small load connected to your battery, the spread of your cells will be only minimal and the balancer may not actually work. It may not even kick in. So the size of your current actually matters. And then quite a few people have actually asked, if you leave the balancer connected 24/7, how much energy do you actually waste? I mean, the balancer is not 100% effective. It may have like between 40 and 60%, I would guess, efficiency. So if it runs 24/7, from all this balancing energy transfer, only 50% gets used and the rest is wasted. That could be quite a lot or could be nothing. I don't know. What do you think? And then some people have suggested, well, we can leave the balancer actually connected 24/7 at this battery if we can set the delta, the precision of the active balancer to 20, 30 or even 50 millivolt. So and only if the cells are going apart further than 50 millivolt, the balancer would actually start working and doing its work. And this is exactly what the Seplos active balancer is doing. If you remember a couple of videos back, we had a look at the new active balancer from Seplos, and this has a fixed precision of 50 millivolt. And they leave it running as well. Balancer starts at 2.8 or 3 volts or something, but has a precision of 50 millivolt. So it will not do much in the flat part of the curve. Only when we go in this steeper area and the cells are drifting apart, it will kick in. But it also means we will never have a better balancing result than 50 millivolt. Is that good enough? Potentially yes. And two people actually said, well, if you have a bad cell in your pack, and they got both the example with Litokala battery cells. The Gary from Scotland, well, and he's not happy with them. The capacity is quite bad and he's always complaining about it. But if you have one or several bad cells in your pack, the active balancer running all the time would actually fight these cells to balance these cells all the time, either charging or discharging, and potentially makes this whole thing worse than for these cells. Overuses them. So that's a very good point actually. And some people said, well, if you have a brand new battery bank with well-matched and high-quality cells, you may not even need an active balancer. But this is actually only a snapshot of the current situation then. What happens in 5 years' time? In 8 years, in 10 years' time, when the cells are aging and start drifting apart? Then you need an active balancer anyway. So all very good points to consider. I just wanted to share this with you here. These were all comments showing up quite frequently under the last video. So thank you very much again for all these comments, and you have a good night. See you in the next one. Bye. Also, on a side note, we almost have full moon, and I can see that my house solar produces 19 volts in moonlight.